Hey everyone, it's Nate, Options Locator, doing the March 7th Options Locator newsletter. Just going to dive right into it. Last week was a pretty rough week overall with the market. A lot of, unanswered questions as far as what lies ahead, how we're gonna move forward. It's Saturday afternoon on March 6th right now. The Senate passed the $1.9 trillion relief bill earlier in the day today, so we'll see how that impacts markets next week. Part of me questions if it will even really impact it at all. I mean, we all kind of really saw that coming, so we'll see what happens. Not really expecting a whole lot of recovery just based on that bill. So we did get a nice recovery on Friday. They sold off and then they put in a lot of hammers on Friday to really salvage the day. So that was a pretty good effort on the Bulls' part there. So we'll see how things go moving forward. So getting into last week's newsletter here, CRMD. I'm not sure if they had news out Monday, but as you can see, big gap down. This was see how big of a gap down this was. Almost a 40% gap down. So that's not good. So, that kind of negated the move. You could have still played it short. This break under Monday's low would have confirmed that they were going to continue to take it down. So still could have played it short there. Found some good support here around 7. As you can see, old breakout area here, support here. So old resistance and support, they always come back hand in hand together. So EOLS is a great move. Continued to hold that gap. Broke out over 1265. Here's Monday. It's triggered it. Still worked. From the breakout to the high on the week was over 16%. So I think that's pretty solid. As you can see, it couldn't quite break over the 1481 mark, but still went almost right to it. The high of this day was 1472, so it came within 9 cents of testing that area before the market turned and came back. So still a good move there. I hope some of you guys caught that. IQ, all things considered, it held up pretty well. So had an inside day on Monday. You take the break of the inside day up. It confirms it over that outside day candle, which was our initial trigger. But you could have got your entry on the inside day up move for a nice little move there. I like the way it held up and came back on Friday as well. It's long term. I'm still looking for that 29.18 mark there. KHC broke out late on Wednesday, so I had the inside day on Monday. Held 36, broke out late on Wednesday, and then continued up on Thursday. But then, the market conditions kind of yanked that move. So I thought we were going to get over 39 and really make a push into this gap furthermore. Just didn't happen. So one of these days it's going to. So we'll see what happens there. I still like that for a longer term play there. KNX, another great one. Broke over this downward trend line here, confirming it up. So from the breakout to high of the week is over 7% there. So you still could have made a good move even if you took it, to the high on Wednesday. That's still a 5% move. I'd take that all day, all week. MD, we got into that gap. It was a 10% gap and it filled half of it. So from the breakout to the high, the way it closed, not a red day on here at all. So you find out what's working in the market and you find out what's showing strength. Hey, I've never really even played this name before, but it showed some strength. It's holding this trend line. You readjust it. You got a 5.5% move this week. So Still looking strong. I'd like to see it get to the bottom of this candle here. It was 27.41, so complete that gap fill. So getting half of it in the week, that's pretty good. QS, couldn't get going long. Tried breaking out. I really wanted it to really solidly break over 60. Couldn't do it. That's why I set my alert at 62.04. And then it broke this trend line here. Filled this small gap below. So the short on this worked very well. UNP, so held up okay first couple days, broke the downward or the upward trend line here on Wednesday, confirmed that move on Thursday, but it held 200, which was a key spot I was looking for it to hold. Bounced back Friday, triggered the downward trend line here. I readjusted it to the top of the wick for Friday, so it might trigger again. It will be on this week's newsletter again because I'm looking for industrials and transports to really take off. So I think overall good move. It triggered late Friday. I would still like for it to see some continuation up to around 220. Okay, now diving into this week's newsletter, we've got starting out as Disney. So I like how we had this breakout here. We got the 200 tag finally, but it hasn't done anything since. So went inside week. Here was the breakout up to 200. 200 magnet. I often say when something becomes a magnet, what the problem with that is that once it hits, they pull it back. And that's what they've done here. They've pulled it back a little bit. So I'm not getting too anxious with this one. I want to see it over 192 through this downward trend line here, make a run back over 200, 200 plus. Really the short on it would be under 184 or so. And then might test this old breakout area. So that's what I'm looking for on Disney this week. Next one is ET, Energy Transfer. Energy's hot right now. I really like this one, and I went with the April calls on this one. They're relatively cheap. They've got good open interest. You can even go a little bit further out. What I like about this one is if you zoom out, and we've got some time with April, it's in the gap here. It filled about half of this gap. So that's my next resistance area is 955. If we could get over that, I would like to see it fill to just over 10 and 1018 there. So that's what I'm looking for on this one. I put the April monthly $9 calls on there. I think that's a good target, short-term target. Then we get to 955. So I like that hammer on Friday. That's one heck of a hammer. I really like that. So if we could get through this downward trend line, I'd like to see a run at $9. And that's why I went with April, to give us some time to absorb the move if there is any pullback. Next up, we've got gold. Not spot gold or anything, just the Barrick Gold Corporation here. The volume gets in the way of the chart. So I like this. It's got some good resistance right here at 20. I want to see a move over 20. There's a small gap up here on the daily. These aren't huge moves. It might look big on the candle wise, but you look over here at the dollar wise, and you're only, from here to here is only $2. So if we get a breakout to that, fill that gap, we're at 8.5%. That's still a great move, don't get me wrong. But the candles in the chart may make it look better or worse, just depending on how you look at the chart. I would like to see it, if it does get a short on it. I'm not looking for anything too drastic. There's some good support around 1750. So, but under this upward trend line is where I'd take a short. So around $19, with a stop around 21. So, but I do like this small gap up here, and I like, the way gold's been acting lately, if we can get a good move to the upside there. So IBM's next. We've got a good gap here. It's tried it here, and here. So we'll see if we can get a good move higher. I really want to see it get over 124. If we could get really over 125, this 124.79 is obviously going to be a major spot as well. So that's, I want to get in kind of over this line here, but I'm also remaining somewhat cautious because I want to see it really get over 125. It is an outside to inside month, so it went outside in January, inside in February, with a shooter in February. So that has me a little bit concerned, but that gap above is hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore the day it had on Friday. So if we can get over 124, 125, I'm looking at either the March 125 calls or the April 130 calls on this. It's up to you, but I put on the newsletter the March 125 calls. The March 130 calls would absorb the move a little bit better, and that would get us to the top of the gap. MasterCard, so it went inside week 2 weeks ago, then it went outside week here, so this is the outside week, and now we're outside to inside week. So holding up well, made new all-time highs here, 368.79, and so I want to see it get over this downward trend line here and confirm the move, so get over 365 roughly, and then look for a move, to test those current highs, get over 370, ultimately would be obviously a 400 magnet, but that's a little further out. So you could possibly look at the April 400 calls. The spread's kind of wide on those, and then obviously the further you get out, the more expensive they're going to get. But I have down the March 370 calls or 375 calls. The spread's about a 50-cent spread right now, but if it gets some movement, then those spreads might become a little tighter. So I do like it, and we'll see how it holds up. Hold 350. They found some support here multiple times this week. So if it can hold 350, it should be okay. But if we drop under 350, then I think it's open season down here around 330. MOS. So what I'm liking about this one is it's holding out up pretty well on this upward trend line, and I'm looking at 3401 as a target. But if we zoom out, I'm also looking at 37 as a target. So 3401, you've got resistance here, push through it here, and then you got resistance again here. So, and then 3737 is the most recent highs in the last 3 years. So 3 or 4 years there. So that's what I'm looking at ultimately on that one. Nice upward movement here along, since last March. So in the last year it's come, 400% or more. So it's a good move there. I'm liking how it's holding this upward trend line. And really what I'm looking at is over 31 here is really my my entry. Be 31 with targets of $1 increments. And then the high of this candle, 33.23, and then 34.01. So that's what I'm looking at here. I really like it, and I went with the March 30 calls. The April 30 calls aren't priced too bad, but even the March, I almost went with the April 35 calls because they have over 40,000 open interest. So keep that in mind as well. And the spread is only a 10-cent spread on that, so and they're relatively cheap. They're 87 cents by 97 cents. So you might want to look at those as well. OSK, not one I've ever played, but it's in the news lately because they had said that they were competing with Workhorse, WKHS, over the USPS electric vehicle contract. And so that's what this is. This volume here is all that news. So that's why I went inside week this past week, because they couldn't really do anything since that news, and then it came out that that the government's a few senators or somebody was wanting to investigate the OSK's ability to deliver on that contract. So what I'm liking here is how it recovered on Friday. I mean, that's a pretty good recovery, and it's showing me that they're wanting to retest this 116, 120 area. So those are my targets here this week. If we can get continued strength here, 116 to 120, I really like how they really stepped it up, and they said, we're gonna recover this, and they've held on okay this week. So the March 120 calls is what I'm looking at on OSK. They relatively good price action there, so we'll see if we can get a solid move up there to this week. RTX, tight pattern here. Really looking, it went outside to inside day on Friday. So, and also went outside to inside week. So had an outside inverted hammer or shooter on the weekly. And then it went to an inside bullish week. So if we can get over 75, 50 or so, really make a push up here to 78, 80 is what I'm looking at. The April 80 calls are what I have down. They're relatively cheap with a tight spread, and I like those, and there's good open interest there. And again, I'm going with April to absorb any type of move there. SLB, not to be confused with SOB, really doing well, holding this upward trend line. It's testing it here, 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 and here. Looking for obviously a great push over 30 here. If we can get over 30, that's a pretty good resistance area. If you look at it on the monthly here, here's some, tags it here, or that's 35, I guess, 35, good. So if we can get over 30, we can get to 35 pretty quick, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking at here, and I went with the March 30 calls. They're relatively cheap as well. And I was also even looking at the April 30 calls because they're also pretty well priced and everything. But if we can get over this small trend line here, or basically over Friday's high of 29.31, then I would be looking, at 30, and then 35.66, and 40 as targets with a stop around 27 is what I'm looking at on this. SOS, I know Randy was in this one this past week, and I was in it a couple times. Can be a great challenge play. Got a nice hold on this trend line. They filled this gap here the week prior. Had a lot of volume increase. Big move. It was $2 down here, and it goes up 16. You got an 800% move there. It's pretty crazy in just a month. So I know there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Like social media influence here. A lot of I don't want to say penny stock rooms, but I know a lot of people are looking at this one. So as long as it holds this trend line here, I'm okay. I'm looking for a move over 8. I've got the May $10 monthly calls. I went with May because there's still quite a little bit of open interest. The spreads are only like a 10-cent spread, and gives us the ability to absorb any type of move, being 2 months out. So once again, looking at the May $10 calls, looking at the May $5 puts if there's any type of downward move here. So if we could, be in the May $10 calls and be up here at $15 in a couple weeks, and we're $5 in the money, then we'll be more than okay there. So AT&T, they partially got into this gap below here last week. Nice move off the inside day from Monday, so inside and up, and just continued up and up all week. A nice day on Friday, good volume here. Really looking for a breakout here, and then really needs to push through 30. There's a small gap right here that it got wicked out there, but if we could fill it on a full candle, and then we're looking at 30, 50, 31, this jumbled mess here, and then any up around 32. And I'm looking at this with the April $30 calls. They're only 62 cents by 65 cents with 29,000 open interest. So they're cheap, ton of open interest, and the ability is there to be, it closed at 29.62. So we're only 38 cents from them being in the money. And then, it's $31. We're going to be $1 in the money with some time. So that's why I went with the April $30 calls. TBT, the ProShares Ultra Short 20 plus year Treasury, double inside day and up this week. And then it went inside day on Friday. Another one that's kind of like the gold chart earlier. It may look like a lot of move, but when you come over to the dollar amount, it's not huge. So looking at the March $21 calls, they're 51 by 55 right now. Over 21.15 is my entry, 21.50 is the target. Top of this candle, 21.73 is my next target. So ultimately, it's got a jumbled mess around 25 would be my next target. There's a few open gaps here that you can maybe get closed. Not going to be a barn burner, get rich off of this one, but it could work out pretty well for you. Uber, a lot of dip buying on Friday, in this past week on it, and I like how it's held 50. There's been some dips below it and stuff, but for the most part, it held 50 here, held it here, barely dipped below it here, which filled this gap. And then, they're almost tagging it here. So they're holding it up pretty well against 50. And I really like that. And I like this downward trend line. If we can get over 56, then over 58, 60, old breakout area here, 62, 64. That's what I'm looking at, just kind of stair-stepping it up. And I went with the April $60 calls is what I'm looking at. They're priced pretty well. Good open interest, almost 20,000 open interest on those. So that's what I'm looking at there. Visa, along with MasterCard, holding up well. This move here is the same move that MasterCard made. They both made new highs that day. So once it got up here to 220, it made a new high, but it couldn't hold it. So then they pulled it back. Holding this upward trend line here. If we can get over this downward trend line inside day up over 216, work it up 218, 220 plus is what I'm looking at this week. And I went with the March 220 calls. They're a bit better with their spreads and prices than MasterCard is. So I I play Visa more than I do MasterCard. I like it a lot better. X, United States Steel. I like how it's held 16. Old breakout area here. Retest here. Retested it here. Almost tested it here. Inside day on Friday. You got your downward trend line. Don't want to jump the gun, so we'll look for 1869 break. Get to 19. Take out 1961, 2011, 2035 plus. So up to 21 is what I'm looking at. And with the April $20 calls there. So the other setups, we have big lots, nice reclaim on Friday with an outside day off of earnings. If they can hold this, or get through this trend line here, get us back up to 68 is what I'm looking at on big lots. Dropbox broke out this downward trend line on Thursday with an outside day wick. Confirmed it on Friday. Now we need to get over this 2355 area, 24, 2450, 25, 2550. So you can see, you remember our old breakout here, and then this was a spectacular move through that gap. Big move. So a lot of speculation on buyout chatter here, takeover chatter. So just be cautious of that. But I am liking this one for a retest of 25. Facebook, my honorary inside day or inside week play, barely went in, barely broke out last week's low here on this outside day wick. Otherwise, it would have been an inside week. Very tight action here. Get over this trend line. If we can get over that, then 268, that's 270 to 275 wall, and we'll be onward and upward towards 280, 285. So I'm really liking that one. It's working out pretty well. Went inside month in February, and now it has the potential to go outside month because of this wick right there on Thursday. So now we're looking for it to go back through the old range and get over ultimately 276.60, which is right here. So this is the February high. So if we can push through that, we'll go outside month, and then we'll be looking at this area here as the next targets. And Union Pacific, UNP, kind of went over that earlier in the review. Held 200. Now we're looking to get a confirmed push through this downward trend line up around 220. And then the other ones I didn't put on the list, but I'm just going to go over their charts really quick. AGIO, I like this one. I'm looking for a push basically over this old breakout area. If we can get over $50, basically, get over 50. Then make a nice run back up to 58. BABA, I like this one. It was an inside day the other day. Then I was looking for an outside, then my outside day continuation there. So kind of maybe something like that is what I'm looking at. Get some, came back down to this old area, 230. Good support right there. So held up okay. Now if we can get a push back up, you've got this small gap here on the daily, and then they never finish filling this gap nor this gap. So long term needs to get back up to 300 and really do something. Kind of chopped around all in this area. It's not making the moves it once did. CSX goes right along with UMP. Kind of looking for a move over 92, get through this trend line here, and then work our way up to ultimately a 100 magnet. CRK, the reason I liked this one, I was looking through charts this morning, and I just noticed how it held this like $4 area, like religiously held it here, 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 and then here. I mean, it just held this area. And so what I'm thinking is it continues to hold it because it's held it for many, many years. The problem is I don't know where the target is. It filled this gap, and it hasn't, it's been up and down ever since. So from here, do we get over 650, or do we come back down and test 4 again? That's why I didn't really add it to the list. Well, I might send an alert over 650 and see if we can get a nice 10% move there. 8. I liked this one because I liked how it held 30. Yeah, I really like how it's holding up. Nothing major there though, so that's why I didn't really add it. A lot of wicks, so. And then 3M is pretty tight here. Saw a nice move on Friday. I know a few big names on Twitter are pushing it. So if we can get a move up to about 188 or so, it's kind of what I'm looking for. I almost bought the March. I think it was the 185 calls on Friday. Wasn't really caring for the spread. So kind of now I'm looking at the April 190 calls. They're 238 by 256 with 2,500 open interest. So that might give us a good move there. So just keep this one on your radar, especially with industrials heating up. And that's really all I've got for this week. A lot of good action, a lot of good setups in my opinion. I'm actually pretty excited about this week. I know some might be cautious about how things are going to go forward, but I'm pretty optimistic with our setups and our plan of attack here. So continue to grind it out. Take the A+ setups. We don't have time or the ability to take anything shorter than or lower than an A+ setup in this environment. This environment is pretty tough right now, and I think we're holding up okay. And I want to thank each and every one of you being along this journey with me. But just continue to protect your capital and manage your risk, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be here for very long. I can guide you in the right direction. It's up to you to push the buttons on the mouse and make that decision with the tools and resources that I give you. So really looking forward to this week, and I hope you guys have a great week. And if you have any questions about the newsletter or anything, just give me a holler. Thank you.